everybody, and welcome to That Wrestling Show, the only podcast where all pro wrestling matters. And as you heard, the theme song for Vader, of course, the news came out earlier this week that Leon White, aka Big Van Vader, passed away from pneumonia at the age of 63 years old. This week on the program, I will be talking about momentarily about the life and career of Vader, but I will also be talking about NXT Takeover Chicago and Money in the Bank. Also going to give my thoughts on some news going on in the world of professional wrestling and a whole lot more. Now, you do not hear the voice of Fro. He is on assignment this week, using that excuse for WWE, but Fro is busy. And he won't be joining me this week, but he will return next week. But I did want to start the show this week talking about arguably one of the greatest big men in the history of professional wrestling, and that is Leon White, a.k.a. Big Van Vader. Vader passed away, like I said, on Wednesday at the age of 63, which, if you think about it, is still a young age. I mean, 63 is a young age. But he had some health issues the last couple of years with his heart, and he had pneumonia lately, and basically the combination of the pneumonia and the issues with his heart is what led to his passing away. And you don't really think about when somebody is sick, or when they're announced over the news that they're sick, that this guy has so much time left that you don't think that they're going to be gone so quickly. And I think that's what I think a lot of us had been thinking about, because here's Vader, Big Van Vader, the 400 plus pound monster of a man, and that's life, folks. Unfortunately, that is life. That's how it goes at times, and it's unfortunate that we go through that. And I want to read a tweet that was posted by Vader's son on Vader's Twitter account 2 days ago, announcing his death. It's a quick one. It just says, "It is with a heavy heart to inform everyone that my father, Leon White, passed away on Monday night, June 18th, 2018, at approximately 7:25 p.m. Like I said, he was 63 years old, and my goodness, what a 63 years he had on this planet Earth. His story is quite interesting. For those who don't know, he grew up in LA, had a rough time as a child, and then he went to the University of Colorado to play football, and then he ends up getting drafted by the Los Angeles Rams. And he plays only 2 seasons, but he did end up, he was a part of that 1979 Los Angeles Rams team that went to Super Bowl 14, and they lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers, but he got to play in the Super Bowl. Not a lot of people can say that. He was forced to retire after only a few seasons in the league due to a ruptured patella. And then the story goes that an old friend of his saw him at a gym, and the friend suggested to Vader, "Why don't you try out professional wrestling?" So he did, and he got his start in the AWA, where he was known as Baby Bull Leon White. those episodes were on ESPN Classic for quite a while. I'm not going to get into my bitterness towards ESPN Classic. That's for another day. But he started out as a babyface. He started out as a babyface for Vern Gagne in the AWA, and at one point had a shot at Stan Hansen in the AWA World Heavyweight Championship, but lost in that match. But this is not going to be the last time you hear about Stan Hansen and Vader. Believe me, it is not the last time. So, Vader's career literally took him all over the world, and his first true international exposure came in Europe for Otto Wanz, who also recently passed away within the last year or so, for his promotion. And at that time, he was known as Bull Power, and he would end up on March 22nd, 1987, win his first championship, which happened to be the World Heavyweight Championship for the Catch Wrestling Association, defeating Otto Wanz in Denver, Colorado. This is the only time that the title ever changed hands in the U.S. Vader would hold on to the title for a few months before losing it back to Wanz, and he became a star there. That's where the big beginning of Vader is. And then his time in Japan. That's very well documented. And something that I didn't know, and I did research yesterday getting ready for this week's show, was he was originally signed to All Japan Pro Wrestling. Because I'd always known, I think a lot of us had known for a while, that his big break in Japan came with New Japan Pro Wrestling. But what happened was, Giant Baba, the owner of All Japan, traded his contract over to New Japan in 1987 after consideration. And then this is where the big, explosion comes for Vader. Because he debuts at the end of 87. And what happens is, and this is, I've seen the video. This is unbelievably true. I mean, so there's a gentleman by the name of Takeshi Kitano, who is a famous Japanese comedian. He used to have a game show called Takeshi's Kingdom, which for some of you might know was used for a show in the early 2000s called MXC, Most Extreme Elimination Challenge. So, in 87, Takeshi Kitano is in New Japan, and he has a stable with him. So, on this occasion, in the end of 1987, like I said, he brings out Vader. And Inoki faces Vader. And within a few minutes, Vader beats Inoki. He just beats Inoki. And then after that, a riot took place in Sumo Hall, and they were banned for a little over a year before they were allowed back in 1989. But Vader's impact to begin his career was huge, because he would eventually go on to win the IWGP Heavyweight title in 1989, where he won a tournament. He defeated Shinya Hashimoto in the finals to become the new IWGP Heavyweight Champion. He would go on to win the title on, I believe it was 3 occasions that he won the IWGP Heavyweight title. And then also he was in a tag team with Bam Bam Bigelow, and they ended up winning the IWGP Tag Team titles. But the most legendary thing that Vader may have ever been a part of, and this goes back to Stan Hansen, was an incident that took place while Vader was IWGP Heavyweight Champion. If you have not seen the footage, I suggest to all of you that if you do watch it, it's not for the weak at heart. So the story, the famous clip, Vader wrestles Stan Hansen. Now, Vader is wearing a mask at this point in time. Not the red mask that we would, see him in, and that would be his trademark mask for the 90s. But I mean a regular wrestling mask. So Hansen, as we know, is a very stiff guy. But he's also blind as a bat. So he goes, and he has this, he throws these punches to Vader. And at one point, by accident, Hansen pokes Vader in the eye. So Vader takes his mask off, and the whole crowd sees this, and they're like, ooh. Well, what happened was the eye popped out of the socket, and Vader had to pop the eye back into the socket, and Vader ended up finishing the match. He ends up finishing the match with Hansen. That goes to a no contest. And then after that, Vader had to have a metal plate put into his face, obviously under his eye, for the protection of his eye. I mean, God, you had your eye basically poked out of you, But yeah, if you've never seen it, it is not for the weak at heart. It really is not. So, while in New Japan, he makes a quick visit to Mexico for the Universal Wrestling Association. That promotion no longer runs, or is no longer running. And there, he would win another world championship. He defeats El Chanik. I always mess up that name, and I apologize. To become their world heavyweight champion. And he would hold that title for over a year before losing it back to El Chanik. And then he debuts in WCW in 1990. His debut match is at the Great American Bash 90. And he goes up against the Z-Man, Tom Zink. And Vader just demolishes the Z-Man within a few minutes. So after that, the next time we see him is at Wrestle War 91, the rematch against Stan Hansen in Phoenix, Arizona, and that's a good match to watch too. That match goes to a double disqualification. So then after that, he's gone. He's back to Japan, and then he comes back to Halloween Havoc, and he is in the infamous Chamber of Horrors match. Vader plays a small role in the match, but he is involved in the match itself. He's on the losing team, of course. And then 1992 ends up being the breakout year for him in the United States. He gets into this feud with Sting. He's now managed by Harley Race. And at the Great American Bash 92, he beats Sting for the World Heavyweight title. And this is a short title reign because within a month he loses the title to Ron Simmons, and Vader is a part of history because Ron Simmons on that night became the first black world heavyweight champion. So after that, Vader, he's still in the picture. He has an unbelievable match with Sting at Starrcade 92. I mean, I don't think there is a bad Sting-Vader match that can be found. If you haven't seen a Sting-Vader match, it doesn't matter which one. Go watch it. It is fantastic to watch. So, at the end of 1992, Vader regains the WCW heavyweight title from Ron Simmons, and in 93 is just his year. With the exception of like a few days, literally a few days, Vader's the WCW champion for an entire year, basically. And he has two feuds going on. One that is quietly remembered with the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith, because they face each other at Slamboree, the first Slamboree. They're the main event for the WCW heavyweight title. They have a series that goes really from May to August. You could say September also because they were part of the War Games. But the other feud that he has is the one with Cactus Jack, and that is one of the more legendary feuds ever in WCW. And if you have Mick Foley, there's a DVD, Mick Foley's Greatest Hits and Misses. The first match they show is Cactus Jack and Vader. And in the DVD, and this is something I recommend everyone, if you can find it, because it's so hard to find, they put in the DVD the footage of Vader just beating the snot out of Jack. And, I mean, he just gets beat up, busted nose, broken nose, and they start this feud. And then the next week, Vader powerbombs Jack onto the floor, onto the concrete, and this begins the whole Cactus Jack has amnesia angle. But it does come back with Cactus Jack returning, and they end up having an unbelievable match at Halloween Havoc 93 and a Texas Death Match, which some have called one of the greatest matches ever in Halloween Havoc history. And to be honest, there's no argument, really, for me. That's just a good old-fashioned fight. That's what it is. So then, at the end of 93, Vader loses the WCW title to Ric Flair, and Vader never regains the WCW title back for the remaining almost 2 years that he was in WCW. Then he was a part of another infamous moment with Mick Foley, Cactus Jack, while on a tour of Germany. Vader was in the ring when Cactus Jack lost his ear. And that was not Vader's fault. Cactus Jack, he did the shtick where he got his head tied up, and on that occasion, the ropes were very tight, and that's what caused Mick to lose his ear. So, Vader then goes on into a feud with the Boss, Big Boss Man, and then eventually he gets into a feud with Hulk Hogan. And this feud goes from really Starrcade 94, the end of Starrcade, because Vader wins the U.S. title from Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and Hogan retains the title. So they're logically, the next in line. So it goes from really the end of Starrcade 94 all the way to July, where they face each other in a steel cage match at the beach. Literally on the beach. So, after that, it's gonna get weird because Vader's supposed to be in an angle where he teams up with Hulk Hogan for the War Games to face the Dungeon of Doom. And there was an incident with Vader and Paul Orndorff, and Vader ends up losing his job. He gets fired from WCW, never returns. And then he goes to WWF in 96. His debut is at the Royal Rumble. And he's just a monster in that match. He eliminates 4 guys in that match before being eliminated by Shawn Michaels. Vader's run in WWF, a lot of people, it's so weird because it's like, oh, Vader came and Vince never used him, and I mean, WWF at that time was in a weird position with WCW, because WCW hadn't really started to take over in the Monday Night War, but Vader was an acquisition. And Vader, he does main event SummerSlam 96 against Shawn Michaels, loses. And, then he has other main events. He's in the 4-way elimination match at an In Your House where Vader, that's another one where he just gets busted open. So, in 98, he leaves, and then he goes back to Japan, and he ends up going to work for All Japan Pro Wrestling. Doesn't go back to New Japan. He goes to All Japan. And he ends up winning the Triple Crown title, which is their heavyweight title. So he stays there for a little while, and then he joins Pro Wrestling Noah in the very beginning, in the early years of Pro Wrestling Noah. And he's an intricate part in that promotion. And by that point in the 2000s, his career sort of starts to slow down, but Vader is just an intriguing individual, very, very well known. He was also known for making guest appearances on TV shows. Most notably, he was in 2 episodes of Boy Meets World. Now, I gotta admit, I don't remember his first appearance, because I used to watch Boy Meets World. I used to watch that show. I don't remember his first appearance, which the episode is called The Thrilla and Philla. I do remember the second episode. The second episode I remember very, very well, because Corey is conflicted because it's Topanga's 16th birthday. But at the same time, he has an acquaintance, I'm going to say, in high school who is sort of has a little bit of an issue. Not an issue, but his home life is rough. And Vader is the dad. And there's a part in the episode where we see Vader wrestling Jake the Snake Roberts. This is during the episode. And I remember there's one point where the son goes to Vader and, they have a talk and, he tells him that he loves him. And Vader comes back and he wins. And then at the end of the episode, Corey and Topanga dance in the ring, and Vader is there with his son because his older son, doesn't want to be a wrestler. So I do remember that. But Vader does leave behind 2 children, one of which was Jake Carter, who used to be in NXT many years ago. But Vader was... I'll tell you, if you did not grow up watching Vader, like some of us did, my God, what an athlete he was. I don't think any of us ever saw a guy that big like Vader doing a moonsault. I mean, he had the power bomb, he had the Vader splash, and then he had the big moonsault, which, when you watch it, it's like, oh my God, this guy's 400 plus pounds, and, he's able to do this move. And you just wouldn't think, I don't think a lot of people at that time realized, or at least of my generation, realized how impressive that is, because the whole idea of the moonsault was really nothing more than something for a little guy to do, like a junior heavyweight. And then here comes Vader, and he comes in, and he does this moonsault, and it's unbelievable, how this guy could hit a moonsault. It was just incredible. It wasn't the prettiest, it wasn't the prettiest looking moonsault, but it was effective. That's what it was. It was effective. And that's what made the move so great to see and so impressive. I did want to read one tweet in particular. And I mentioned Boy Meets World a moment ago. We had 2 tweets from 2 of the cast members from Boy Meets World. The first one was from Danielle Fishel, who played Topanga on the show. And she wrote, "Vader was larger than life and could be intimidating upon first glance, but he was kind, warm, and funny. It was nice to relive our time in Anaheim together by reading this article from 2016. Thanks for the memories, V. #RIPV." Or RIP Vader. The other tweet comes from Ethan Suplee, who played Vader's son on the show. And he first went to Twitter saying, "Sad to learn of Leon's passing, RIP Vader." And then he put up on his Instagram account a picture from Boy Meets World of him with Vader and Corey and Sean from that episode. So, it is sad to learn, of his passing. And I believe the last public appearance on television that we saw of Vader was at the 2016 Hall of Fame ceremony when he was inducting Stan Hansen into the Hall of Fame. So, WWE Network has put up a collection of Vader matches, and I'm going to go through these matches. I'll tell you guys. Well, first off, the other stuff that they have on there, they do have some other stuff. They have his clip from the home video, True Giants. He's in the list on WWE Countdown Most Imposing Big Men, and an episode of Table for 3 with him, DDP, and Sting. That's a good episode. I actually recommend that. But as far as the matches that they have up, they have him in 86 facing Stan Hansen, and then facing Bruiser Brody. And then the match at Wrestle War where he does face Hansen again. And then the match where he wins the WCW title from Sting. And the final match from the King of Cable tournament from Starrcade 92, which is an unbelievable match. And then the match where Vader beats Ron Simmons for the title. And the strap match with Sting from Super Brawl 3. And I'm sure there's going to be many, many more matches and vignettes of Vader that we're going to get in the upcoming days. And I just want to send my thoughts and well wishes to the friends and family of Vader. He is truly going to be missed by the entire wrestling world. One of the most incredible talents I think that has ever set foot in a wrestling ring. We have truly lost a legend in Big Van Vader. We do have other news here that should be discussed, and the first one is we're coming up on the Battle of Los Angeles, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla's annual 3-day tournament, is right around the corner, and it usually takes place during Labor Day weekend. And the first 10 participants have been announced for this year's Battle of Los Angeles tournament. They are Robbie Eagles, David Starr, Ray Horace, Chris Brooks, Joey Janela, Puma King, PCO, Pierre Carl Ouellet, Brody King, Jody Fleisch, and Ilja Dragunov. Those are the first 10 competitors announced for this year's Battle of Los Angeles tournament. Like I said, the tournament takes place during Labor Day weekend, so right at the end of August and the beginning of September. One of the more shocking news that took place or was announced this week was the firing of Big Cass from WWE. He was fired. The announcement of his release came on Tuesday, just 2 days after he had a match at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view with Daniel Bryan. Now, there has been much speculation since the announcement was made that he was released. It stems from many issues that have been rumored. It includes the whole ordeal with him and Vince and that segment where he beat up a little person on SmackDown Live when he was told not to. It stems from another rumor I've heard is his relationship with the guys in the back. I've heard he has a drinking problem. I've heard he had an incident with the fans. I've heard something with Kevin Dunn. And then this piece of news came along just a little while ago, and I think this is it's disturbing. Let's just say that. So Brad Shepard, who hosts a podcast called Backstage with WWE, he provided a little more detail about what may have led to Cass's firing. So I'm going to read what was said on the podcast, and this is from Brad Shepard. He said, and I quote, "So the interesting thing is all the reports starting coming out, basically all of the reports were essentially true in that there was a series of incidents. His bad attitude and his behavior when he was drinking. So he was really in the doghouse when he did the midget deal on SmackDown Live where he went off script with beating up the midget. There were some other incidents too. His behavior has gone on like this for a while. Mike Bucci, former WWE superstar and of course wrestled in ECW, he was visiting one night. He was in the area visiting the boys in the locker room, and Cass allegedly tried to big league him and told him to leave the locker room. The interesting part of it that I was told from a high-level source in WWE was that they felt like they had enough big guys that they could let him go. Like there was no leverage there on Cass's part. He's 7 feet tall and you can't teach that. Because they have guys like Drew McIntyre and Baron Corbin, and that was their thought process when they considered that decision to release him. Now there's another one, and again, this is another rumor, so, take it with a grain of salt, that he allegedly, and that's the key word, allegedly grabbed the arm of his ex-girlfriend, Carmella. So, Ryan Satin of Pro Wrestling Sheet reported from his website of Justin Barrazzo, excuse me. And in this report, it says that Cass recently tried to reconcile with his ex-girlfriend Carmella and caused a scene while trying to get her to forgive him. Well, she tried to brush him off, but he grabbed her arm. Underwood writes that the Usos and Eric Rowan were allegedly there to stop Cass. Okay. Here's my thing. And this is sort of sad. To see a guy like Big Cass, who, when he started in NXT, you could see there might have been some potential for him to get somewhere. And then he gets put together with Enzo. And they become a very popular, very successful tag team. And it's just, it's just a matter of time before they become tag team champions. Well, they never became tag team champions, but they were both so popular, that act was so popular. And then when he became heel and they started his singles push, that might be where the beginning of all of his troubles came. And then the incident the night after SummerSlam where he injured his knee, and Enzo never forgave Big Cass for that. Never forgave him. Because he's like, oh, you couldn't finish the match. So Cass, I guess, started to develop this big ego in his head. And I don't know what would have been the final straw. I would think it would be grabbing Carmella. And I know Carmella is not the most liked female wrestler in not only in WWE, but in the world of wrestling. But when you grab a woman by the arm, that's where I lose a lot of respect for you as a human being. And it's just something that should not be tolerated. So, as far as I'm concerned, I think WWE made a smart move by letting Big Cass go if he's going to continue to cause more problems. And if he continues to cause more problems, then, you gotta get rid of him. You just gotta get rid of him, So, will he surface again in the near future? Remains to be seen. Only time will tell. Last week, Fro and I, we discussed a story where Ring of Honor would have a show in Madison Square Garden. Well, WWE earlier this week put the kibosh, the El Kabong, if you will, on Ring of Honor debuting in Madison Square Garden. Because, as has been reported the last few weeks, WWE has the first say in if any other wrestling promotion, can use Madison Square Garden for a wrestling show. So Joe Koff, who is the COO of Ring of Honor, he released a brief statement to Mike Johnson of PWInsider.com. And I'm going to read this quote. And then there's another piece of MSG-related news, and I'm going to put my thoughts on this. I'm going to tell you, Mike, because you're asking. I'm not going to discuss beyond this statement because I am not going to litigate this in the press. We had a deal with Madison Square Garden, and they then told us they were backing out after communications from the WWE. We are not able to get any other dates in any kind of discussion. I'm expecting that our lawyers will be contacting all the parties involved, and the best we can hope is that we can find a resolution so we can bring the kind of energy and excitement that ROH and our partner New Japan to a bigger audience and to bigger arenas and to the fans of New York City. When asked about booking another date in the venue, he said there is no date and the discussion is going to end here on that. Well, like I said, a few weeks back, AAA was rumored to have a show in Madison Square Garden. Now, this is as of today's writing from Mike Johnson of PWInsider.com. In the wake of ROH COO Joe Keff revealing to PWInsider.com earlier this week that the promotion has lost its scheduled date with Madison Square Garden next year after what he described as communications from the WWE, and that Ring of Honor has thus far been unable to secure any other dates with the legendary New York City venue, the obvious question to ask is whether the Lucha Libre promotion, AAA's dates with MSG are still in place. After speaking with numerous sources this morning, we are told that AAA still has two holds on MSG in the fall of 2018, including September 16th and a backup date, as AAA was also looking at running Las Vegas on September 16th. Initially, we had heard that the second date was September 23rd, but we were told this morning it is actually later in the fall. We are told that AAA is working on strategies for running this fall, but have also considered pushing back their debut until early 2019 as they want to maximize it and not waste the time, money, and effort going into the debut. So it looks like at the moment, AAA is still going to hold a show in the Madison Square Garden arena. Now, Ring of Honor. This was reported by Dave Meltzer from the latest installment of the Observer Radio. He has mentioned that ROH is contemplating legal action after a WWE official, not Vince McMahon, called Madison Square Garden and told them to cancel the show. Meltzer noted that, quote, there's a lot of unhappiness going around, unquote, about it. As previously reported, the Garden approached Ring of Honor and not the other way around. The Garden was apparently looking for some dates to fill because WWE was not running enough in the arena. Once WWE heard about this, they decided to step in. Okay, so I want to give my thoughts because I had posted this earlier in the week. And obviously, you know, we had a couple fans who were upset about this story. But like we had discussed, or like we had said on this show the last 2 weeks, it's WWE's decision. Ultimately, they have the first choice on if any other wrestling promotion can run a show in Madison Square Garden. And is it hard to accept that, you know, Ring of Honor is not going to be able to be in Madison Square Garden? As of right now, it is. It is a little hard. But we have to also remember that WWE has first choice. They have first decision on if a promotion is going to run in the Garden or not. Now, the fact that in this situation, somebody not named Vince McMahon made the call, that might be an interesting twist. Because I would think, and this is just me, I would think if the call is going to be made that, hey, we're not letting anybody run MSG other than us, it's going to be from a McMahon, or at least Vince. Since it's not, I don't know what's going to happen. I honestly don't know what will happen. Could we see a legal issue happen? There's a possibility. Could we see this just end up being nothing? There's that possibility. So, right now, you know, it looks like WWE is not being very well liked by the people in New York City and for Ring of Honor. So, New Japan this week announced the participants for the 2018 G1 Climax Tournament, and boy, oh boy, does this look like quite a roster of competitors to be in it. So, we got the announcement earlier this week of the 20 participants. It is 2 blocks of 10. It is round robin, so everyone's going to face each other once. The tournament begins on July the 14th, which is 3 weeks from tomorrow, and it's basically going to go almost the entire month, and the conclusion is going to be on August the 12th in Tokyo at Budokan Hall. So here are the participants, and I'm going to go through each block. Block A consists of Hiroshi Tanahashi, Toji Makabe, Michael Elgin, Kazuchika Okada, Jay White, Yoshihashi, Bad Luck Fale, Adam Page, Evil, and Minoru Suzuki. Whew. Block B consists of Juice Robinson, Hiroki Goto, Tomohiro Ishii, Toru Yano, Kenny Omega, Kota Ibushi, Tama Tonga, Tetsuya Naito, Sanada, and Zack Sabre Jr. So right away, I think the big explosion, the big surprise is that Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi are in the same block, which means they're gonna face each other they're gonna face each other. They're gonna face each other. It's not gonna be at some point, but they are gonna face each other during the tournament. Another thing that I noticed, Block A, my God, both these blocks are loaded, but Block A, I think in particular, might be more loaded, because you have Tanahashi, you got Elgin, you have Okada, you have White, you have Suzuki, you have so many good wrestlers in that block. And then Block B, besides Omega and Ibushi, you got Naito, you got Sanada, you got Zack Sabre Jr. It's a very loaded roster of participants in the tournament. So, if I had to make my early prediction for how it's gonna go, I think Okada's gonna win the A block, and I think Ibushi's gonna win the B block, and then it'll lead to an Okada-Ibushi final, and I guess Ibushi's gonna take it. Yeah, but this is as of right now. The way this is set up, I think Ibushi's going to win the tournament, but who knows? I could be wrong. We all could be wrong. Very, very possible. So, have to see how it all goes in the upcoming weeks and the upcoming weeks ahead. Alright, let's get to some reviews, and it was quite a weekend for WWE, to say the least. They were in Chicago Saturday night and Sunday night. 2 good shows. 2 very good shows, in my opinion. And I want to talk about both of these shows. I'll start with NXT TakeOver Chicago, and I don't know what it is, folks, but it just seems like every time TakeOver has a show, I probably have said this many times, I will say it again, they just tear the house down. They just tear the house down. So I have many different reviews, actually. Meltzer's, CBS Sports, and ESPN. And, of course, get into what our friends of the show, our fans, thought of this show and Money in the Bank in just a little bit. So, start off with the NXT Tag Team title match. Roderick Strong and Kyle O'Reilly defending against Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch. I loved how, in the beginning of this match, they booed Lorcan and Burch, even though they're the faces. But by the end, they get a standing ovation from the fans. This was a fantastic match. It was a great way to start off this pay-per-view, this show. It was really, really good. This show went right out of the gate and never looked back. This was the start. They went out of the gate and it was boom. It was a fantastic tag team match. I thought it told a very good story. Strong and O'Reilly retained the tag team titles. I gave this an A. This was just a great match. I thought, okay, how in the world is this going to be topped? Oh boy, well, we got a lot more to go. Meltzer gave this match 4.5 stars. CBS Sports gave this a B+. Ooh, they're being a little harsh, I think, in that one. And ESPN gave this a 4 out of 5. So the next match is Ricochet against Velveteen Dream. This was such an anticipated match. And these two did not disappoint one bit. I'm telling you, I don't think there's very few people in this business who, as a fan that I have seen, who has made such a big impact in such a short amount of time, and Velveteen Dream is exactly that. I mean, this is just another example of WWE has a gem in the Velveteen Dream, and if they just let him do his thing, and they push him the right way, this kid's gonna be something. But this was a great match. You got some high flying, you got some wrestling, you just got everything you wanted. Ricochet got the win with the 630 splash, but these two had the crowd in the palm of their hands, and they just never let go. I gave this match an A. I really did. I loved this match. This was a great match. Meltzer gave this 4.25 stars. CBS Sports gave this an A+, and ESPN gave it 4.75 out of 5. So, high praise all around. Next match was Nikki Cross challenging Shayna Baszler for the NXT Women's title. This was, time-wise, the shortest match of the show, but I think for the amount of time that they were given, I thought they told a good story where Nikki Cross, here's Nikki Cross, she's a little bit off the edge, and, everything Baszler does not affect Nikki Cross. And I thought it told a good... this was another good one. This match got the lowest grade on the show, but it doesn't mean that it was a bad match. Baszler got the chokehold on, and Nikki Cross was smiling, which was a great... It was just a great, scene. Great job by the camera production in that one before Nikki Cross finally passed out. She never tapped out. She passed out. Baszler retains the title. I gave this a B. I didn't think it was that bad of a match. I think the length was right, and it was just very good. Meltzer gave this 2.25 star. CBS Sports gave this a B, and ESPN gave it a 2 out of 5. Then we had the NXT Championship as Lars Sullivan challenged Aleister Black for the tag team title, or not the tag team title, for the NXT title, pardon me. This was Lars Sullivan's best showing to date. This was his best showing to date. And I think, I said this back in November, if you give the guy time and he improves, he's gonna be something. And I think this match was the beginning of this guy's gonna be something. This guy's gonna be good. I'm not saying he's gonna be the greatest star of all time, but I think, give him time, there's potential. Aleister Black, on the other hand, he's in a whole other level. He could be called up tomorrow to the main roster, and he would be just extremely over with the fans. Just a good power match overall. Black gets the win with the Black Mass to retain the NXT title. I gave this a B+. Meltzer gave this 3.25 stars. CBS Sports also gave it a B+, and ESPN gave it 3.5 out of 5. Then the main event. Oh my gosh, what a match this was. What an unbelievable match this was. Johnny Gargano against Tommaso Ciampa in a Chicago street fight. This was incredibly well done. This is one of the best matches I've seen. Probably one of the best street fights I've ever seen. It told a great story, and everything got used. The fan involvement was there. The commentating table was there. Tommaso took part of the ring apart, which you never see on WWE, ever. It was just very well done. But I want to go to the last few minutes. Just the last few minutes, maybe like 5-10 minutes of the match. Because Ciampa is going to give Gargano the air raid crash from what looks like the top of a storage setup. So Ciampa takes the wedding ring of Johnny Gargano, because he's married to Candice LeRae, cute couple by the way. So he takes the ring off. He pulls it off of Gargano's hand, throws it across, and it's like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? And then Gargano gets up, hits an air raid crash through the announce table, and the whole place goes nuts. And then the medics come by. My thought was, okay, this match is over. They're going to call it a no contest. And I did something that I never do in a review. When I watch these shows, when I watch the pay-per-views or, an old episode, on YouTube, I never give my grade, in the middle of a match. I never have done that until this night. So I had put down A+. It already got an A+. Then it gets better, because Ciampa is on the stretcher, and Gargano's like, no, I'm not done. So he takes Ciampa, and he hits a few officials, he hits a referee, and he takes him back into the ring, and he starts beating the crap out of Ciampa. He's got Ciampa handcuffed, and he's just beating him up, and then more officials come, and they try to separate it, and Gargano's not having it. And then the end of the match, Gargano's about to go back in the ring. Here comes Ciampa, hits a last second desperation moves, hits a DDT onto the wood where it was exposed earlier, and I completely forgot about that. And Gargano, it was like, or Ciampa, it was his last bit of effort, and he did just enough to get the pin, and Gargano loses the street fight. Tommaso Ciampa wins the street fight in such a dramatic way. It was such a great way. I know there were people at the time, and I think it still is, that were like, oh, it went a little too much. But guys, that's the beauty of this. This was such a great fight, and the ending was out of nowhere, that I ended up giving it 2 additional pluses. I gave it an A+++, because of how good the story was told and the action there was, and I can't wait to see the last one, because there's gonna be one more, and the last one has to be the big blow-off. It just has to be. So Meltzer gave this 4.5 stars. CBS Sports gave it an A. ESPN gave it 4.5 out of 5. All in all, it was a very, very good show. I mean, it's NXT. I mean, they haven't had a bad show, I don't think, yet. So, did the poll, asked what everybody thought of and what grade they would give NXT TakeOver Chicago. Most people gave this episode or this event an A. One person gave it a B. One person gave it a D. I'm a little concerned about that, or about that person. But I'm going to give this an A too. It was just a great show. I'm telling you, these NXT TakeOver events, it just seems like they get better and better and better all the time. So, ask what everyone's favorite match was. Surprisingly, it's a 2-horse race. I'm not surprised with the 2, but I thought the tag match would have... I thought the tag match would have been at least in the running, but the 2 are Ricochet against Velveteen Dream and Johnny Gargano against Tommaso Ciampa. I gotta go Gargano and Ciampa. I just loved that match. That's gonna be up there for me as a match of the year candidate. Then least favorite match, Shayna Baszler and Nikki Cross, along with the tag title match, which I'm very surprised about, because that was a great match, are the lead vote getters, and then 1 vote for Black and Sullivan. I'm going with the women's title match, but like I said, just because it was my least favorite match doesn't mean it wasn't a good match. It was a good match. It just happened to be on a card with so many freaking good matches. So, after that show, the next night was the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. A lot of highs and lows, let's just say, with this particular show. So, let's get into the review for Money in the Bank and how people thought of this show overall. So, going to start it off with the kickoff match, the SmackDown Tag Team title match, Bludgeon Brothers defending against Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows. This was a fun match. This match was better than it had every right to be. Bludgeon Brothers hold on to the tag titles, but my God, that was such a fun match to watch. I would like to see more of these two teams face each other in the near future. I gave this a C+. Meltzer gave it 2 stars. CBS Sports gave it a C+. And ESPN, I don't know why they're doing this now, but they no longer give a rating for the kickoff matches. It's part of the show, people. Come on. So, we dive right into the main pay-per-view, and we get into our first match, Daniel Bryan against Big Cass. Little did we know, this would be Big Cass's last televised WWE match. A good opening match. I really enjoyed this. I thought this was a lot better than the match they had at Backlash. Obviously, they gave this more time to develop a story. And I thought it told a good story. Daniel Bryan was going for the leg. Big Cass was doing everything he could to not be caught in a submission move. And at the end, Daniel Bryan gets him with the heel hook. And Daniel Bryan wins, and goodbye to Big Cass. I enjoyed this match. I thought this was a good match, a fun match to start off the show. I gave this a B. Meltzer gave this 2 3/4 stars. CBS Sports gave it a C. And ESPN gave it a 3 out of 5. Then the next match... Oh, no. Hold on. Before we get to the next match, we got to talk about the best segment of the entire show. Maybe one of the best segments of the year. Was New Day in the locker room. And they're strategizing about, what the one person's going to do in the match. Well, Kevin Owens comes in. And he has a trash bag with him. I don't know what the hell this was, but this was just so good. So he dumps... There's a bag full of pancake in this trash bag. And the New Day's like, oh, it's pancakes, it's pancakes. So, basically, Kevin Owens is trying to bribe New Day into working with him to get Braun Strowman, taken completely out of the picture. So, they have a little discussion, and, basically New Day's like, we are not cheaters, sir, no, and Kevin Owens goes on this rant about how he hates breakfast, he thinks pancakes are bad, IHOP was right for changing it to IHOB, and then the best line of the entire segment is when he tells them that their cereal sucked. That was so hilarious. Oh, they pulled that off so well. Oh, best segment of the entire show. It was fantastic. Next match is Sami Zayn against Bobby Lashley. What do you expect? It was all Bobby Lashley. Basically it was Sami Zayn trying to play the coward, try to not get beat up, and he got caught and Bobby Lashley beat him. Little did we know that Sami Zayn was doing this match with 2 torn rotator cuffs, so he is out for the rest of this year. We're not going to see him until early 2019. He's hoping for some time before WrestleMania. Best of luck, best of wishes to Sami Zayn. Hope he gets better. I gave this a C. Meltzer gave this 1 1/4 stars. CBS Sports gave this a D. And ESPN gave this a 1 out of 5. Next match, the Intercontinental title on the line. Elias challenging Seth Rollins. This was another good match. I really enjoyed this, and there were times where I thought, where Elias was going to win the Intercontinental title. I really thought, it was going to be Elias's time, but they did a good job. Everybody did their part in this match. Seth Rollins ends up winning it with a roll-up and a little bit of handful of tights, but he does retain the Intercontinental title. I gave the match a B. Meltzer gave this 3.5 stars. CBS Sports gave this a B. And ESPN gave it 3 3/4 out of 5. Although, I'm sure there are people who are complaining that it was all for naught because the next night, Seth loses the Intercontinental title to Dolph Ziggler. To be honest, I'm not upset. That was a very nice surprise coming out of that, because, Seth has just been on a roll lately. You never saw that coming. At least I didn't see it coming. Then we had the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. The participants in this match were Sasha Banks, Charlotte Flair, Alexa Bliss, Natalya, Naomi, Becky Lynch, Lana, and Ember Moon. This was a pretty good match. This actually was the better of the two ladder matches that we had. Very good spots all around. You had a few comedy moments. And then in the end, the crowd was so hot because it looked like that Becky Lynch was going to win the match. Like, she's going to finally get her redemption. But here comes Alexa Bliss. She tips the ladder over and it knocks Becky off. And that's enough for Alexa to climb up the ladder to retrieve the briefcase. And Alexa Bliss is Miss Money in the Bank. Very well done match. Like I said, I thought it was the better of the two ladder matches. I gave this a B+. Meltzer gave this 4 stars. Wow, that's very high guard there. CBS Sports gave this a C+, and ESPN gave it 3 3/4 out of 5. Then the next match was Roman Reigns against Jinder Mahal. Just gotta get through this match, folks. You know what? It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. This match could have been a whole lot worse. It really could have been. But it wasn't a good match. I mean, it wasn't the worst match, but it just wasn't good. Roman Reigns got the win. It was pretty obvious he was going to get the win, I think. I gave this a C-. Meltzer gave this 2.5 stars. CBS Sports gave it a D, and ESPN gave it 1 3/4 out of 5. Then we had the SmackDown Women's title match. Asuka challenging Carmella for the title. And for a while, it was a pretty decent match. It was a pretty decent match. And then we get to the ending where someone dressed like Asuka stands on the apron. And I think some of us had that thought of, okay, what's going on here? I honestly thought it was going to be somebody from NXT. I thought it was somebody coming up from NXT. But it wasn't, because as the person pulls the mask off, it's revealed to be James Ellsworth, which was a nice little reveal. Carmella got a kick, and she gets the win to retain the women's title. I gave this a C. Meltzer gave this 1.5 stars. CBS Sports gave it a C-. ESPN gave it a 3 out of 5. And I guess the question is, what happens to Asuka at this point? What do you do with her at this point in time? That's going to be very interesting to see. Then we had the WWE Championship on the line in a last man standing match. Shinsuke Nakamura challenging AJ Styles. This was a very good match. This was the best match of the show, I thought. Both men going back and forth. Just very good stuff. It was towards the middle and then to the end where it started to get a little bit more physical, and I thought that's where it got really, really good. Just really good back and forth action. AJ hits a phenomenal forearm on the Nakamura through the announce table. AJ Styles obviously beats the 10 count. Nakamura never does. And AJ Styles retains the WWE title. Very, very good match, I thought. I gave this an A. This was the highest grade I gave for any match on this show. Dave Meltzer gave this a 4-star rating. CBS Sports gave it a B+, and ESPN gave it 4.25 out of 5. Then we had, and the way it was going, I was starting to think that maybe this was going to be the main event. Just the way it was going, the way the booking was, I thought, man, this is going to end up being the main event, but it ends up not being the main event. Nia Jax defending the Raw Women's title against Ronda Rousey. And there was a lot of talk and a lot of, concern of, okay, this is Rousey's second live televised match. How is she going to do? She's in a singles match. She's not in a tag match to where she can bounce off of somebody or multiple people. She's got to do it, and she's got to do it with one other person. But I tell you, this told a very good story. Nia Jax just dominating Ronda Rousey, and then Rousey comes back. And when she comes back, it was impressive. The face, I think her facial expressions told the story of the match, because it was so good. Like, this is how it should have been. Nia Jax dominates Ronda Rousey. It just has to be that way. And then Rousey makes this comeback. And then you get to and then she goes to the top rope at one point and hits a cross body block onto Nia Jax. And it's shocking. Everyone is just shocked at how Rousey is. And then we get to the end of the match. Rousey tries to get the armbar on Jax. Jax is doing everything she can to not let go of the fingers. And then again, I got to give credit to production here for WWE. The way they did the camera work was so impressive, I couldn't believe it. So she's got it. She's just about to get the armbar in. She's about to get it. She's going to win the title. And then all of a sudden, Alexa Bliss comes from under the ring and hits Ronda Rousey with the briefcase, with the Money in the Bank briefcase. And the crowd goes crazy. And Alexa Bliss just, she hits Rousey multiple times with the briefcase, and then she hits Jax with the briefcase multiple times. And then, to make sure Rousey can't come back, she goes to the outside, Alexa Bliss does, and hits her 2 or 3 more times with the briefcase. And then she cashes in her Money in the Bank contract, and Alexa hits Twisted Bliss, and she wins the Raw Women's title. And I'm gonna give the grades, and then I'm gonna give my thoughts on this. The match as a whole, Jax and Rousey, was really good. I gotta give both women props on this one. I gave this a B, and it's a very high B, almost a B+. But this was really good. This was one of my favorite matches of the night. Meltzer gave this 3.5 stars. CBS Sports combined the women's title match and the cash-in together, and they gave it an A-. I cannot argue with that grade. And ESPN gave this 3.75 out of 5. Now, this is what I want to say. I think the execution of everything was so perfect because everybody comes off very well. Alexa Bliss comes off very well because she cashed in the contract. She won the women's title. So she's a 5-time champion now. Rousey comes off really good for the fact that here she's more than anything the victim of a cash-in, even though she's not the one who was a champion, because she was about to win the title, and instead is out on the floor recovering, and she sees somebody else win the title, and now you have Ronda Rousey, who never lost. She never lost the match. She won. It was by DQ, but she never lost the match. Now, she's more than ever in the mix for the title. And then you have Nia Jax, who comes off really good, not only as the champion going into the match, but now as the former champion for losing it. So all three women come off great in the match. Very, very well done. And then the final match of the night was the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. This was Samoa Joe, Kevin Owens, Finn Balor, Bobby Roode, The Miz, Braun Strowman, and the member of the New Day that was going to compete, Kofi Kingston. So, like I said, I thought the women's was a better match, but the men did not disappoint. They did a good job in this one as well. Early on, everyone was trying to get Braun Strowman out of the mix, dumping the ladders on top of him. Just very well done, very good storytelling, and then everyone else fights each other for a while. And then Braun does come back, and then we get a point where Owens takes a bump. He basically gets chokeslammed 15 feet from a ladder through a table. He's done for. And then it comes down to Kofi and Finn and Braun, and Balor gets knocked off the ladder, and then Kofi's on the back. He's riding Braun Strowman like a horse, but he gets thrown off, and Strowman grabs the briefcase, and we have Braun Strowman not only as Mr. Money in the Bank, but I guess what everyone's been saying the last several days, the Monster in the Bank, as he wins that ladder match. I gave the match a B. I thought it was a good match. It was a fun match. Just a good way to cap off the night. Meltzer gave this 4.25 stars. CBS Sports gave this a B, and ESPN gave it 4.25 out of 5. All in all, I actually enjoyed this show. This show, I mean, on paper, I don't think it was going to be as good as it was, but it does end up being a very good show. Not WWE's best show of the year, but I thought it was a good show overall. Let's see what our fans thought of this pay-per-view. Most people gave this show a C. Very interesting. Then we had some B's. We had one person give it an A, and then one person gave it an F. That's what I love about the diversity of this group, is everyone has their own opinion, and, you know, we're not gonna be like, what the hell are you doing? Why are you giving this an F? You're stupid, you know, blah, blah, blah. I really enjoyed this show. I really did. I'm gonna give this a B. I thought it presented itself much better than it was going to be. I really did. Favorite match from the pay-per-view, again, another 2-horse race between the women's Money in the Bank ladder match and the WWE title match. I gotta go with the WWE title match. That was such a very, very good match. But that women's ladder match was really good as well. One of the better matches, not only of the night, but really of that whole weekend. And then, least favorite match, that's a 3-horse race. Most people are going with Jinder and Roman, followed by Sami Zayn against Bobby Lashley, and then the SmackDown Tag Title match. Wow, I enjoyed that match. I gotta go with Reigns and Mahal. That just was not that good of a match. So, sorry guys, you just weren't that good on that situation. You just weren't. Alright, so I believe that's gonna wrap it up here for this week, so let's get into the plugs. You can follow the show on Twitter at WrestlingShow11. Don't forget to join our Facebook group. It is That Wrestling Show fan group. Just type that in the search bar and you are right there on Facebook. And if you can't find it, do not worry. It's not the end of the world. Click on the link in the description box and you are right there. Once again, that is That Wrestling Show fan group. Don't forget to check out the website, thatwrestlingshow.com. And please, please, please visit my Patreon page, patreon.com/Bill's World of Podcasts, where your support and donations will help not only this show, but some of the other shows that I do as well. Don't forget to listen to this week's episode of Sharks Pond, a South Park podcast, where I review the episode Toilet Paper. It's the 99th episode, which means we're one episode away from episode number 100. Also want to plug a couple other shows. Our Vantage Point, the Retro Wrestling Podcast, which you can hear each and every Monday with Joe Marotta and Michael Quinn. I'm sure they're going to have stuff to talk about with Vader this week on the podcast, or if not this week, probably a special little tribute episode for Vader. You could also check out the Wrestling Podcast About Nothing with Mike Crockett, and Ring of Honor superstar Brian Malonis, as they give you their stories of being on the road and give you thoughts on the current topics going on in the world of professional wrestling. Don't forget to check out Queens of the Ring with Nikki and Jennifer. Get a perspective on professional wrestling from a women's point of view, and believe me, they are very, very good. They know what they are talking about. And a new podcast I want to bring up, not wrestling related, but I think it's one everyone should check out. If you are a fan of movies, and I am a fan of the movies, check out this podcast. It is called Best Pick, P-I-C-K. It is a podcast hosted by three people, all from England, or from the United Kingdom, and they discuss every Academy Award-winning Best Picture in no particular order, and they review it, and they decide if they think that movie should have won Best Picture or not. So check them out. It is Best Pick, P-I-C-K. And I'm also going to do this for Fro, a preview for Another Digital Citizen, if you guys have not had a chance to listen to it. It is Luke and Fro. This week they discuss the news of the week, TV of the week, Operation Northwoods, movies of the week, results from Money in the Bank, and another digital review of the latest movie that just came out, Superfly. Yep, they made a remake. They remade Superfly. Why? Just why? Next week on the program, Fro will be back, and we will preview Ring of Honor's Best in the World pay-per-view, as that is going to take place actually the day our show comes up. Plus, we'll get into other wrestling news. And don't forget, in 2 weeks, for the first time ever, That Wrestling Show is going on the road, as I am going into parts unknown. I wonder how it's going to turn out. So on that note, everybody have a good, safe weekend. Have fun no matter what it is that you are doing. And when you are done, come back next week for another episode of That Wrestling Show, the only podcast where all pro wrestling matters. And for this week, it's Vader time.